So, welcome again back to a discussion on the new Caribbean folktales and legends for the 21st century by Roselle Thompson. Okay, so let's look at the background to Thompson's new Caribbean folktales and legend for the 21st century. Caribbean folktales were originally transmitted beliefs, myths, and tales from one generation to another, originating, though not exclusively, from Africa by slaves who brought to the region their laws, their tales. And these were mainly about beliefs, myths, and practices of the people. This is why some of the tales have religious figures or supernatural folklore figures which possess characteristics that are identical to those of African deities. But this body of African folklore has been synthesized and influenced by other languages in the Caribbean region: English, French, and to a lesser degree Spanish and Dutch from the colonizers who brought their own brand of law into the Caribbean region. These different types of folklore found expression in the new environment, which was the Caribbean, and were later used in situations that warranted use of a tale as a kind of coded message, such as situations that needed instilling caution, situations that needed suggesting warning, situations where they needed to apply cunning, courage, or good sense. Subsequently, these tales, which were fused with African folklore, had a new function and expression in the Caribbean region. Today we have vestiges of various colonial inputs. In addition to those brought into the region by the slaves, the slave created many types of renewed characters, like a favorite, Anansi, the trickster figure. Okay, so make no mistake, the existence of Caribbean folktales show how over hundreds of years of slavery, these tales have been indelibly etched in the subconscious of the Caribbean people, so that transmitting the stories from one generation to the other symbolizes the transference of a kind of Caribbean cultural heirloom. History has shown that belief in the folk characters cannot be easily forgotten, in the same way that the history of the people cannot be obliterated. So it's for these reasons that these stories find expression within the Caribbean landscape, and they evidence a fusion of Africa's deep consciousness within the people's psyche through their recreated laws or recreated tales. Now, these tales have been kept alive by the older generation, those who have transmitted them to surviving groups of Caribbean people. But within the passage of both time and the passage of the old folks, many have ceased the practice of storytelling on moonlit nights, as I suggested in an episode before. Added to this dilemma, succeeding generations of Caribbean youths, both in the region and abroad, seem to have lost touch with this once vibrant traditional experience. In fact, many Caribbean youths, especially those in the diaspora outside of the Caribbean region, are completely oblivious to the very existence of the Caribbean language, Caribbean law, and stories of the past. Now, as a result of this situation, there is, as I said before, a need to preserve the tales and their essence in Caribbean culture, as well as their meaning in Caribbean people's lives. But time and the notion of a Caribbean location have changed. Therefore, new methods of transmitting the tales and ensuring that they last and succeed for generations, as I said before, has to take on new forms of expression in the 21st century. This way, it is hoped that they'll find meaningful expressions in the lives of Caribbean people and their offspring, both at home in the Caribbean region as well as in the diaspora. And by diaspora, I mean anywhere outside of the Caribbean region where Caribbean people have settled and living. So we have folk tales, but what about the competition? What is the competition against these tales? What is the competition like? In terms of legends, the world of superpower and superhuman universe is currently dominated by modern day characters. These characters were created in the 1960s from what is popularly called Marvel Universe. These modern day folk tales and legends exist in a multiverse where the stories in most American comic book titles and other media by Marvel Entertainment take place. Superheroes are presented in teams: Avengers, X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Guardians of the Universe, of the Galaxy, Avengers Infinity War, Black Panther, and so on and so forth. Alternatively, they are presented in Marvel Cinematic Universe as individual superheroes: Spider-Man, Captain America, Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, Deadpool, and numerous others. So, can Caribbean folktales and legends match this? Marvel's universe is based on the real world with features of real countries, personalities such as politicians, and historical events such as World War II. Although there are some fictional elements which introduce made-up countries, organizations, or magical incantations, peculiar sorcery, monsters, cosmic powers that show an advanced technological age, all these exist in the Marvel Universe. These tales are not only made indelibly in great comic books, but they also generate big record-breaking blockbuster movies and millions of dollars. For example, $648 million created by Infinity War, this global box office net. Huge sums of money that dominate current society's diet of what might be seen as the ultimate in superhero tales and legend. And in addition, the dominance of these Marvel characters in media terms may seem to create an immense competitive edge for the lesser known folk tales and legends, contesting for the limelight. So anything else would be seen as contesting for the limelight. The fact is, to an extent, this may be so, but it is my belief that they all have their individual roles to play in a society's social and cultural development. And considering the role that the new Caribbean folktales and legend for the 21st century is playing, the didactic aims make them not rivals with Marvel's universe, but I believe complementary in their old objectives. Let's have a look at the tales individually. What has Roselle Thompson done with these tales that take them from their old century and have brought them to their new century perspective and given them 21st century scenarios? More on that later. Thank you.